And this is the agenda for this week, today and this week. How's everyone doing today? Getting ready for your finals next week? All right, good. And then summer is around the corner, the summer break. And I'm sure you're looking forward to that. All right, it's 10 o'clock. Let's go ahead and get started, everybody. And I want to start here, and let's make sure this makes sense. And let me know if you have questions. So we have one chapter left, which is chapter 11. And this is what we're going to cover today. And there's nothing new technical. There's no, it's a good chapter. We're just not going to be doing any technical work or learning any technical stuff today. But it is an important chapter. And this is it for this week. This is our last chapter, our last lecture. And you can see down here on Thursday, we don't have a class. So I'm giving you Thursday to finalize your work on this big lab over here, which is a good prep for the SBA, and to practice for the final exam. Basically do whatever you need to do to get ready for next week. And next week, the plan is on Tuesday, we're doing the SBA. And the best practice for the SBA is this lab, which you are working on, will be working on. And it is a graded lab. And it is a good practice for the SBA. Over and above reviewing everything we've covered in this course. And the file will be on Net Academy, and I want to show you exactly where it is going to be on Net Academy. So if you were to go to Files, and this is where I've been putting the Zoom recording, and the SBA file is going to be in this folder right here, one SBA, and one is just to put it toward the top. Okay, so it's empty right now, but next Tuesday before 9 o'clock, there will be a file in here, and then you download the file, you do the SBA, and then you upload it into Net Academy. And you have until, you have 3 hours. After that, you will have to email it to me if you don't finish it within the window allocated in Net Academy. So let me go back here. And if you have questions, do let me know. Okay. And then on Thursday, June 11, we have the final exam. And it's about 50 questions. Cisco recommends 70 minutes. I'm giving you 120. So I'm exceeding the Cisco recommendation by quite a bit. And it's very similar to the practice final exam. And the practice final exam is available right now. And you can take it up to 10 times. And you can time yourself. And it will give you a very good feel to how the real final exam is going to go next week. And you can start taking it today, and it will be open all the way until Thursday morning. Thursday, June 11 morning. Okay. So any questions about what's left? So today is chapter 11. Next Tuesday is the SBA. The file will be on Net Academy. Next Thursday is the final exam. And you will take it from home. And you have 2 hours to complete. Okay. There is a practice final exam available as we speak. Strongly recommend that you take it multiple times if you need to. Okay. And I'm sure you remember you have to complete the Cisco course evaluation, not the LBCC course evaluation, before you can take the final exam. If you don't do that, when you click on the final exam, it's going to force you to do the course evaluation. So if I were you, I will just get that out of the way before the final exam, like today. And that way you don't have to spend 5, 6, 7 minutes doing the Cisco course evaluation before you can take the final exam. And as far as a practice SBA, here it is. So download it and you can start working on it and take your time. And if you really want to, you know, after you do it the first time, you may want to time yourself and then do it from scratch the second time, just to see how long it's going to take you, because you do have 3 hours. And 3 hours is a good chunk of time, but there's a lot of work that needs to be completed during those 3 hours. Questions on this? No? Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, then we can move on. Okay. And I will send out reminders. Hold on, Cody. I will send out reminders. So I will send my weekly update, and then I will send a reminder before Tuesday for the SBA, and I will send a reminder before Thursday for the final exam. But please, put it in your calendar. Do whatever you need to do, because we don't want to reschedule any of these events. They are scheduled, and we're going to stick to that. Go ahead, Cody.
I just wanted to ask, have you sent the SBA to Kelly yet? Or should I just use them, wait till then, next Tuesday?
Say it again, Cody. Have I sent the...
Have you sent the SBA file to Kelly? Or should I just wait until...
Oh no, I will do that. Let me make a note. Thank you, Cody. You know what, Cody? I did send it.
Okay.
I did send it. So I think we're good with Kelly. What I haven't sent is this 11.3.1.1, which is an assignment, and she can download that anytime she wants.
She sent me some chapter 11 stuff this morning, so I do
Okay,
have that.
good. Then you're ready for chapter 11. And yes, she did send me an email about a week ago about the SBA, and I did send it to her. All right, moving on, everybody. So I'm gonna close this. And this is the entire course from chapter 1 through 11, which is what we're covering today. And we've covered all of it. And we skipped over chapter 10. Chapter 10 was the ASDM, the GUI for the ASA device. And I don't think we missed a whole lot, because if you know how to do what you need to do from the command line interface, the GUI is easier to use. So this is chapter 11. Okay. So STE stands for Security Testing and Evaluation, everybody. So what are the objectives for ST&E? Uncover design problems, implementation issues, and operational flaws that could lead to violations of the security policy. So like I said, nothing new technical today, but it's really an important chapter. So hopefully by 2020, every company has a security policy, and they have a fairly thoroughly documented security policy, and they are practicing everything that is in that security policy. So the security policy is just a file, and then we are practicing it in implementation. Determine the adequacy of security mechanisms, assurances, and device properties to ensure the security policy. So are we doing what the security policy is telling us to do? Assess the degree of consistency between the system documentations and implementation. And this is quality assurance, everybody. The last few years I worked for HP, I was doing IT audits for HP at our contract manufacturer sites. And my job was to make sure that they are doing what is in the contract. So not if they were doing a perfect job or not, if they were missing things or not. That wasn't my job. I can go back to HP and I can report that, hey, the document is missing this, the document is missing that. And then they would revise it, and then they would go through the lawyers to create a new contract, etc. But my job is, are they doing what is in the contract? No more, no less. And this is what that last statement is saying. Assess the degree of consistency between what is in the document and what they're actually implementing. Okay. Types of network tests. Penetration testing. We've been talking about security in layers, everybody. Please remember this. The best security is always layered. Cisco, the last few years, started using an artichoke as an analogy of that, and you can all visualize or know what an artichoke looks like, and you have to go through many layers before you get to the tasty stuff and the important stuff. And they're saying this is how we should approach security. Think of security as an artichoke, and whoever wants to penetrate, they have to go through all these layers before they get to the sensitive data or the sensitive stuff that they are after. So we can do that and see how many layers they managed to go through before they hit a solid wall that they couldn't go through. Network scanning is basically scanning to see what is open, what is available, what can be exploited. If you are a burglar, and I know none of you are, and you want to break into a house, I don't think you want to just go through a wall. You're just going to walk around the house and see, what your options are. There is a back door, there are a couple of windows, and you're going to be using these as an entry point. And the same thing is true for these bad actors. They're not going to crash into the operating system. They're trying to see what is available. This port is available. If this port is available, then maybe I can use something to go through that door and get into the system. Vulnerability scanning, you're scanning for vulnerabilities. Okay, what is weak? What can be used as an entry point? There is an open back window, and that is a vulnerability. And if you're a burglar, then why break a window if there's an open window and you can go through it? It's a lot easier. Password cracking, I think we all know what that is. And we've been saying, there are 3 ways to crack a password. Guessing is what we see a lot in the movies, dictionary attack, and then, let's try every single combination. And that is the last resort and the most time consuming. And this is why we want a long password. So when they're doing this brute force, this is what this third method is called, it's going to take them an awfully long time to finally figure out what that password is. Log reviews, I think we've spent quite a bit of time talking about the importance of logging. You want to log everything. And we said logging has many advantages. I'm sure you remember this. I said we're using logging for operational purposes, for maintenance purposes, just to see, what is going on. And we're using log for security purposes. If we have a security incident after the fact, someone broke in last night, well, what's left? Where are you going to go? So they did whatever they did and they're gone. And now the only thing left is the log files. And we want to mine those log files for information that will give us clues to what happened. Integrity check. We're talking about the integrity of the files and the integrity of the operating system. Because, one easy way of breaking in is to modify the operating system or modify some of the files. And we can do an integrity check. And I think we all know what a virus, I'm starting to use the term malware instead of a virus, because virus is a specific malware, right? Everybody, it's different from a worm. It's different from spyware. It's different from ransomware. So a malware detection. Any questions on any of these? Okay. And we've talked about black hats and white hats. Black hat hackers are the bad guys. White hat hackers are the good guys. And companies hire, people with a lot of technical expertise, and that is their job. That is their focus, to make sure that the data the company deems sensitive and important is protected. And it is a full-time job these days because there are lots of bad actors out there that are trying to get their hands on that data. And we will, in a few slides, we will get to these different roles. Very good. So you've done the testing. Okay, you have a person or a team of people whose job is to make sure that the data is secure, the systems are hardened and protected, etc., etc. And they do their test, and then they have to review the test results and say, you know what, this system over here has a weakness, we need to fix it, or we're missing something over there. So they really have to do the test, learn what they can learn from those tests, and then improve, because there is no perfect system. I don't think there's anyone out there that can tell you, we have a perfect system and it's 100% secure. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing. Okay. I don't know if you guys know who NSA is, National Security Agency. This is the premier cyber company, or not company, but organization in planet Earth. Everybody, this is a US federal government agency, NSA. And they have the best of both people and computers, the very best worldwide. And they spy on everybody, including you and me. And I don't know if it was last year or the year before, someone broke into an NSA computer. They stole some documents from the NSA computers without the NSA knowing. And then they finally posted the documents. And this is when the NSA found out that someone actually broke into our computers. So this is the premier cyber company on planet Earth. And they weren't able to defend their own computers and their own data. So the notion of 100% secure, 100% safe just doesn't exist. But we can get close to 100%. And it takes a lot of effort to get close to 100%. And companies have a legal and a moral responsibility to do that, especially companies that have sensitive data. Think financial institutions. You know, they have a legal, moral obligations to protect the data, and they do their best. As far as tools, some of these you've seen before, some of these you've never seen before. I'm gonna guess that most of you have seen Nmap, Zenmap. Correct me if I'm wrong. Have you guys used this in a previous class?
Yeah, in last security class.
Okay, very good, excellent. And it's a great tool, everybody. It's a great tool. It's a freebie. You can download it. You can install it in your computer, and then you can point it to a computer, and it will, in fact, we can do this right now. So here it is. If you haven't used it before, and then I can say target 8888. And then over here, I can select the level of scan I want to perform. Let me see, do I have anything here? No, okay. So we have to be careful because I don't have a whole lot of time. So let me do a quick scan and then scan. Okay. And it's doing its scanning. And remember, this is the Google DNS. So of course, port 53 is going to be open because this is the DNS port, and this is what the server is, and HTTPS. So remember the scanning, this is what we just did. We scanned the computer and it said, yep, these two ports are open. So why go and use some ports that are closed? You know, those doors are locked. So let's see if there is a door that is partially open that I can use to break into the system. And here we are, 53443. This is the topology. Okay. And you can find all kind of other information. Let me see, open port choose, filtered ports 98. Not available because we did a quick scan. So if you were to come back here and select an intense scan, and it's going to take a few minutes to do this, then it's going to give you a lot more information about that system. So this is that tool, everybody. And it will show you all the devices between you and it. So if you have to go through 8 routers, 10 routers, it will show you all of that in a map. So this is that. SuperScan does something similar, everybody. SIEM, this is an acronym, and let me show you what that is. In fact, I think there are some slides about each one. And I have a document that has a brief description about each. Okay. So SIEM, everybody. Security information and event management. So we've spent quite a bit of time in this course and in other courses talking about logging. And I said logging by default is disjointed. Okay, this system has a log file, this system has a log file, this system has a log file. And then you have these very simple tool like Event Viewer in Microsoft that allows you to look at the log file. And the problem is, you know, it will allow you to look at each event or you can filter, but filtering just filters doesn't really give you any intelligent analysis. And I've said, to get the most out of these log files, we need to centralize them, and we need some intelligent tools that will enable us to scan them for whatever kind of data we're interested in. And this is what security information and event management is. It's all these log files from your routers, switches, servers, being stored in a single system, and then have some intelligent tools to scan these log files for whatever you're looking for whatever nuggets you're looking for. Security and information and event management is a subsection within the field of computer security, where software products and services combine security information management and security event management. So you can read about it yourself. This is really what it is. We're pulling all these log files from everywhere into a single storage, and then we're using some intelligent tools to go over all of them. Because looking at each system independently, you're just getting a tiny view of what happened. Okay, it's like, having a whole picture and then only being able to look at that picture, in a tiny pieces. And it's hard to see the whole picture when you're looking at it in tiny increments. We want to be able to look at the whole thing and see what the whole thing is showing us. And this is what this SIEM does. And there are some open source products, and of course the good stuff you have to pay for. So forensic analysis correlation, which is really powerful, because now you're correlating an event from this server and this router and this switch. And that's where the power comes in, when you can correlate events from different systems. Aggregation, being able to aggregate all these different log files. We really are talking log files here, everybody. We're talking log files. We don't want those disjointed, separate log files. We want to bring them together. All the log files, bring them together and have some sophisticated tools to scan them. And the sophisticated tools will give you this. Okay, forensic analysis, correlation, and aggregation. So this is what SIEM does. Because looking at each log file independently is just a waste of time. I know it's a strong statement, but it really is a waste of time. You can't just say, okay, let me look at this router log file, and let me just look at this switch log file, and let me look at this server log file independently. Okay, I don't think this is gonna get you what you want. And it's gonna take an awful long time, right, everybody? It's gonna take an awful long time, because you're logging, tens of thousands of events. And we just don't have time to go through all of these and try to put the pieces together. We need a system. The only way to do it is to have an intelligent system. And this is what this slide is. Okay. Okay, let me come back here. Okay. So let me show you this other file, and it is under Chapter 11, Packet Tracer Labs. So we're all familiar with Packet Tracer, so I'm not going to talk about it. I hope we're all familiar with Wireshark. If not, please, everyone, please take some time and learn how to use Wireshark. It's a very, very excellent tool for two reasons. A, it's an excellent educational tool, because you can learn a lot from looking at data being captured by Wireshark. We can look at the segment, we can look at the packet, we can look at the frame, we can look at the protocols, we can see what's going out, we can see what's coming back in. So it's an extremely excellent educational tool. And you can learn an awful lot by running Wireshark and just observing what's going on. Or if you're interested in a particular connection, then you can filter on the IP address, and then you can only see those events inside Wireshark. Number two, it's a very powerful troubleshooting tool. And I've been saying for months now that more than 50% of your job is troubleshooting. So no matter how excellent of an ecosystem you have, you're going to have issues, and you're going to have to troubleshoot those issues. And to troubleshoot, you need data. And Wireshark gives you that data. So Wireshark is an exceptional educational tool. It's a required troubleshooting tool. It's not optional, it's required. Otherwise, you don't have the data. And if you don't have the data, how can you troubleshoot? How are you going to be able to figure out what happened? You need data. And some of this data is going to come from Wireshark. So if you haven't been using Wireshark, if you are not comfortable with Wireshark, I would say, you have the summer and you may want to spend some time just getting to know some of these tools better. And Wireshark, and this is really an order of importance. I don't know if I did this intentionally or not, but Packet Tracer, absolutely, we've been using it a lot, and Wireshark. And I can tell you stories from the field, where, we had a problem, we needed data, and we used Wireshark to give us this data so we can easily figure out what happened and fix it. We talked about ZenMap and Map. We talked about SEIM, everybody combines, okay, a technology used in enterprise organizations because it costs money and you need expertise. So just buying tools and not having expertise in using the tools is it's like buying a really expensive hardware tool and not knowing how to use it. Don't buy it. Okay, if you don't know how to use it, if you're not going to take the time to learn how to use it, don't buy it. It's just a waste of money. So we have to take the time to learn how to use those powerful, complicated, very, very complicated tools. And it's not, we're just going to install it, turn it on, and it's going to work like an anti-malware. This is not anti-malware. You have to know what it is you're looking for. You have to know how to use the tool, like Wireshark, So you can't just turn on Wireshark and go home. That's just a waste. So you have to know how to use it, and you have to have a reason for wanting to use it. And the same thing is true for many of these other tools. Okay. GFI LandGuard, okay, provides a detailed analysis of the state of your network. This includes applications or default configuration posing a security risk. Tripwire, and you can go over this on your own, everybody, assesses and validates IT configurations against internal policies, compliance, and standards. Okay, so cost money. These are not freebie. Okay. NESSUS, vulnerability scanning software focusing on remote access. And remote access is a huge and growing field, especially now with COVID-19. But even before COVID-19, it was huge, except it has multiplied in magnitude in the last few months, and people working from home. And that is a huge security risk for these enterprises. Because are you 100% sure this is Zico, this is Steve, this is Kim, this is Julie that is logging on remotely, or somebody using Zico's credentials to log on? Okay. L0PH crack, this is a free, well, there's a portion of it, there's a version of it that costs money, and then there's a version of it that is free, and I would recommend you download it and play with it. It's just a single file, and it's just it cracks passwords. So you can create a few local accounts in your Windows 10 machines with different passwords and see if this application can crack that password and how long it will take to crack that password. So this is what this tool is good for. And Metasploit provides information about vulnerability and aids in penetrating testings and IDS signature development. Okay, and as you can see, many of them have a free trial version, a free or a trial version. So if you want to play with these different software tools, you can. But just to recap, everybody, I'm not going to talk about the Packet Tracer. I will talk about Wireshark. Please, for your benefit, learn how to use Wireshark. It's a fairly large application. So you can install it and start collecting data very easily. But in order for you to use it effectively, you have to know how Wireshark works, and that is going to take some time. And I strongly recommend that you do this. Same thing is true with ZenMap and Map. None of these are easy tools. So yes, you can install it easily. Yes, you can run it easily. But to really know how to use it effectively and properly is going to take some time, because they are massive. They are very large tools. All right. So this is this. And we changed the focus now to paper. So this is what the rest of this lecture about, a security policy. So let's talk about that. We've been talking a lot about life cycles. If you remember from the project management, we talked about the project life cycle, we talked about the product life cycle, we talked about the service life cycle, and we have a network life cycle as well. Determines what the assets of an organization are by asking, what does the organization have that others want? What processes, data, or information systems are critical for the organization? And what would stop the organization from doing business or fulfilling its mission? And this is really great, everybody. And there's a lot in this one slide. So many years ago, my manager came over and said, Zico, in the Corvallis side, they're putting a business continuity team together and they need someone from IT. Would you be interested? And I said, yes, I would be interested. And I joined that team. And I was amazed how much I learned by joining that business continuity team. And the idea is, what if we get flooded? What if we have a major earthquake? How can this company continue to operate and make money in spite of a flood, in spite of an earthquake? And of course, you start by identifying all the important parts and, how can we make sure that this part will continue to function if we were to have a serious event like a flood or an earthquake. And companies that survive, a hard time are the companies that have a business continuity plan. And companies that go belly up like COVID-19, everybody, nobody saw COVID-19 coming, last Thanksgiving. However, lots of companies out there had a business continuity plan. And those are the companies that are likely to survive because they sat down and they thought about it when they had time to sit down and think about it and say, what if, do this tabletop exercise, what if we have a flood? What if we have an earthquake? What if we have a serious virus that shuts down, the country? How are we going to survive as a company? Those are the companies that are likely to survive. And the ones that never, sat down and thought about the business continuity, usually those are the first companies to go belly up. Okay, security policy. And you don't have to do anything from scratch because they are, just like in project management, there's lots and lots of templates out there. And you can download the templates and you can work with these templates. So identification and authentication policies. So how do I know who's walking through the door? How can I ensure only employees are walking into the door? Or if it's a guest that is escorted by an employee or meets our security policy. Passport policies, we talked about this before when we talked about GPOs. Acceptable use policies, what is acceptable and unacceptable. Okay. Remote access policies, very important, becoming much more important now. More and more people are working remotely. So what is the policy? How are we going to ensure that this really is Zico, that we have a high confidence, this is Zico. We have a high confidence, this is Julie, not someone else using Zico's computer, Zico's account. And this is where IPsec comes in, and this is where multi-factor authentication comes in. So not only do we need a reliable protocol like IPsec, but we also need multi-factor authentication. We're not just going to say, aha, this is the correct account and password, welcome. We're going to require a multi-factor authentication. Network maintenance procedures, and super important, not 1 through 5 are not important, everybody, but super important is incident handling procedures. And I hope by now everyone knows, without a doubt, that you're going to have incidents. Right, everybody? You're all nodding. Okay, there is no 100% anything. There is no 100% anything anywhere. If NSA can't protect its secure files, what hope do you and I have that we can protect ours? Okay, so you're going to have incidents. And you want to have a plan on how to deal with these incidents. You can't afford to say, we had an incident. Okay, let's schedule a meeting at 4 today. Who needs to be in this meeting? And let's talk about the incident and decide what to do about it. It's too late. And I will give you a perfect example. What if that incident is a worm? And you all know what a worm is. It self-replicates. Well, you better have a plan on how to deal with a worm. Immediately, you can't afford to schedule a meeting. You can't afford to pull 5 people together, rush them into a room and say, okay, let's come up with a plan. The worm is replicating as you're sitting in that room talking to one another. So you have to have a plan, and then you say, okay, open page 15, and it says shut all the switches down. Or, tell everyone to unplug from the network, or whatever the plan says. But you have to have a plan, and then you execute whatever you put into that plan. When you have time to sit down with everybody and come up with those plans, without the stress of something going on as you meet. So who's your audience? Management is very, very interested because they are accountable. Okay, you're responsible. We've talked about responsible and accountable. Management is accountable. IT is responsible. And we also have the end users. Very good. So we have these, and this is just a recommendation. This is not how every company does it. This is not how every company should do it. This is just a recommendation. And, based on what is working and what is not working in the industry. So they're saying you really need a governing policy, and you need technical policies, and you need end user policies. Okay, no one can argue with that. It makes sense. Statement of the issue that the policy addresses, how the policy applies in the environment, roles and responsibilities, which is really, really important. Everybody, roles and responsibilities, always ask the question, roles and responsibilities. Okay. Whose role is this? Whose responsibility is this? Because we can't all be responsible for everything. It doesn't work. So we're going to have to break it down and then say, okay, those are the 15 different components, and this is the owner for this, and this is who's responsible for that. Technical policies, okay. General policies, telephony policy, email and communication policy, back to remote access policy, network policy, application policies. Okay. And when I worked for HP, I worked with a guy that got fired for abusing the telephone. Everybody had a girlfriend. This is, a long time ago in a different state. And, he was spending an awful lot of time on the telephone. And this is way before voice over IP. And HP was paying long distance, and then someone looked at the log file and said, whoa, what is this guy doing? Spending 15 hours a week talking to somebody in New York, wherever she lived, and they fired him for that reason. And I know people have also been fired because they misused the email, because it's the company email, it's not your email, and they allow you to conduct some business using the company email, but they don't expect you to run a business out of your company email account. And if they find out that you're abusing it, then there will be consequences for that. Okay. So we all have employees and customers and partners, okay? And customers, let's think of these are the paying customers. And we have a lot of sensitive information about these customers, and we have sensitive information about the partners that the company has a legal and a moral obligation to protect. And more companies have partners these days. When I joined Hewlett-Packard in 1984, Hewlett-Packard did pretty much everything it needed to do for itself by itself. So we did the engineering, we did the manufacturing, we did the maintenance, we did the marketing, the sales, etc. And companies don't do that anymore. We've outsourced everything. So even the engineering, Hewlett-Packard doesn't really do a lot of the engineering for their laptops and desktops and servers. They've outsourced some of that. And of course, manufacturing was outsourced a long time ago, and maintenance was outsourced a long time ago, and manufacturing was outsourced even before that. So those companies are much smaller and leaner than they used to be because they count on their partners and contract manufacturers to do a lot of the work that they traditionally did. And like we've said earlier in this course, we still need access to their data and they need access to our data. So we expect them to drill holes in their firewalls so we can go and grab the data that we need. And the opposite is also true. We also need to drill holes in our firewalls so they can get the data that they need for that business relationship to continue. Because nobody emails, nobody ships data anymore. You just go and grab it from wherever the source is. Okay. And in the case of Singapore, we outsource some of our integrated chips manufacturing to a company that had a fab in Singapore, and we're doing the manufacturing in Singapore. And literally, sometimes they will manufacture an IC in the morning, and by noon, it's put into a product. And we needed this data almost immediately, no more than a 2-hour delay. And I know because I was responsible for that system. So they manufacture something and by 10, by noon, it's being consumed. And we needed the data before we can put it into a product. Yes, a lot of paperwork, everybody. And I know most engineers hate paperwork, but it's an important piece of the business. It's an important piece of the business. And I want to give you a piece of advice, if I may. And I've given you that piece of advice before. So I know a bunch of you are graduating next month. I hope you're all going to have jobs, already have jobs. And when you start a new job, walk in there with open eyes, open ears, your antennas up, and learn, observe. There's a lot to learn. So walk in with the focus that, for the first few months, you're just going to focus on learning as much as you can about the people, about the business, about the technical stuff, everything about the company. And if you see something that can be improved, just make a note to yourself. You'll come back to it later on. But then later on, after you've been there for a few months, you're going to have opportunities to work on teams that are focused on different things. And I hope you will take advantage of these opportunities like me, working on that business continuity for Corvallis. I could have said no. And I had a wonderful relationship with my manager, and she would have said fine, and she would have asked someone else to do it. But I wanted to, and I learned so much by being on that team. So when these opportunities come, I hope you will take advantage of them. Someone saying, we need to revise our security policy, and would you be willing to participate? Or you found out there's such a team. You may want to go to your manager and say, I'm interested. I would like to be a member of that team. And believe me, you will be surprised how much you learn. You don't want to be the IT guy that walks in the morning, sit behind your computer and type in your keyboard all day long. Even though you love it, you enjoy it, that's not going to get you very far. The only way, you're going to get far and you're going to climb up the corporate ladder and do higher value things is by being on these different committees and different teams and learn as much about the company, products, services, and policies as you can. Because the more you learn, the better decisions you can make. And the better the decisions you make, the higher up the corporate ladder you will climb. So don't be reluctant, volunteer to be on those committees, on those teams. There's a lot of excellent things come out of them. And yes, there's some paperwork. It starts with paperwork. We have to do the paperwork before we do the technical work. Everybody? And I hope I have instilled this in you. We have to plan. Don't be in too big of a hurry to roll up your sleeves and start typing. So we need a plan. And the plan is paper. And then we implement what's on paper. Standards, there are lots of templates out there. I don't think there's anything anyone does anymore that doesn't have a template or templates for it. So you don't really need to invent the wheel. There's no point in reinventing the wheel. It's a waste of time. Just look at what's available, grab the one that you think gets you closest to where you would like to be, and then modify it, go from there. And they are showing us, where you can go and grab guidelines or templates. And this is NSA. This is the National Security Agency. Okay, this is the top cybersecurity institution. Okay, it's not really a company, it's a branch of the US federal government on planet Earth. And they have hundreds, thousands of top-notch people, and they have the best of hardware, supercomputers, and a very, very large budget. And like I said, they spy on everybody and everything, including you and I. Roles and responsibilities, really, really important. We can't all be responsible for everything. So we're gonna have to break it down, and we're gonna have to identify those small pieces, small components, and then we have to make sure there's an owner for it and there's someone responsible for it. And it can be the same person or two different people. So ownership and responsibility, accountability and responsibility are two different things. Okay. Some of these acronyms you've seen before, you've heard about the C-suite, and we're talking about all the titles that start with a C. And if you are a private company, you have a chief executive officer. I work for a university. We have a president. We can think of the president as the CEO. President Trump is the CEO of the United States of America. And we have a CIO, a chief information officer. And this is basically the top IT person. And they are focused internally. The focus of the CIO is internal. And their job is to make sure to provide all the IT services that the company needs to survive and thrive, with security in mind, with efficiency in mind, everybody, and with cost in mind. Good, everybody? So if you were to go and ask 100 CIOs today, what keeps you up at night? I hope, all 100 of them will tell you security. And if one or two told you something else, then they're probably not taking security as seriously as they should. So that's what keeps those individuals up. And if you say, what's the next thing, it may be operational or it may be cost, because IT is very, very expensive. IT is super expensive. And the CIO objective is to provide all these fabulous services that the businesses need to thrive for the least amount of money. So we still want to provide all these fabulous IT services, but we want to do it for less money because IT is extremely expensive. The CTO focuses externally. So the CIO is internal, the CTO is external, and a lot of companies don't have a CTO because they don't really have an external IT focus. LBCC doesn't have a CTO because we're not selling IT services to anybody. But if you were a company that is selling IT services, let's take Amazon, let's take Microsoft, let's take Google, let's talk Hewlett Packard, it's a long list, IBM, they all do, and they have a CTO. And the CTO is focusing externally. How can we provide IT services to our customers and make money? And then, we have the security officers, and those are relatively new. Okay, relatively new. When I joined Hewlett Packard, there was no chief security officer or a chief information security officer. And those individuals' jobs is to worry about security, because the CIO job is very big. Okay, providing all the IT services, okay, effectively, efficiently, for the least amount of money is a full-time job. And if we were to say to the CIO, and please worry about security, they may not have enough hours in the day to do this. And we said the CTO is focusing externally. Okay, so some of these large companies, they have a dedicated role for security. And that would be true for all of the companies you can think about. Facebook, Google, Amazon, Hewlett Packard, IBM, Microsoft. It's a long, long list. And they all worry about security. The same thing is true for all financial companies. For all companies that have a lot of data that they want to protect, because for legal and other reasons, they have a chief security officer. And their job is to make sure that they're focusing on security and protecting the assets, the soft assets, the data for that particular company. So at LBCC, we have the equivalent of a CEO, a president, and we have a CIO, Michael Queener. I think most of you have met Michael before. And we don't have any of the other roles. And because we only have a CIO, Michael has to worry about security as well. And we do have data that we want to protect, your data. So LBCC has a legal and a moral obligation to protect your data. So not only do we have your name and your address and your social security and your credit card, we have a lot of information about you, LBCC. And we have a legal, I want to stress everybody, a legal obligation to protect this. And there are people out there that are interested in that data. Security awareness. So now, we've developed a security policy. Well, we have to educate everybody. We can't just educate IT. We have to educate the employees. And we have to educate 100% of the employees and make sure that A, they're aware of it, at least the parts that involves them, and B, they're living by it, not just aware of it, living by it. And again, when I worked for Hewlett Packard, because it is a large, good company, every year, they would modify the policy, and then they would require the employees to review the policy one more time. And then you would have to take a test, and then you would have to pass the test. And you can take the test as many times as you want. They're not going to fire you because you failed it 5 times, but you have to pass it. So you would spend a couple of hours reading, and then there is a test at the end of it, and you had to pass it. And that way you could never ever, say to HP, I didn't know. I wasn't allowed to take money from a, outside company. I didn't know I wasn't allowed to take a gift that is worth more than $20 from an outside company. What do you mean you didn't know? You read the document, you took the exam, you passed the exam. So HP wanted to take the I didn't know away from everybody. And they said, okay, we're going to educate you, and we're going to make sure that you processed the information, you understood the information because you took the test and you passed the test. And from that point on, you can say, I didn't know. And that's good. That's a great policy, I think. Responding to a security breach. So you are going to have security breaches, and you're going to have to respond to them, and you want to respond to them real time if you can. And if you didn't know because it happened 2 months ago, and that's often what happens, is the security breach happened 3 months ago, 2 months ago. It's been going on for 6 months. And we just found out there is a spyware running on our servers and sending sensitive data to somebody. We have to respond to it. And this is the importance of documentation, is you need the data, and hopefully you have an SIEM system that will help you, enable you to go through your many log files over many weeks and extract the nuggets that you need. But you have to have a plan. You can't sit down and say, okay, we've just discovered, someone broke into our database and took some sensitive information. What do we do now? You better have a plan in place, and you just open that manual and you go to page 15 and you just go down the list and you do what you already decided you were going to do a long time before this incident happened. The last thing I want to show you, like I said, this is a fairly short chapter, is when it comes to protecting data, not all data is the same. Okay. So this is true for the US government. It's true for all companies. They have to classify the data because you're not really interested in protecting 100% of the data. If you have a website where employees can sell, stuff they no longer want, a chair, a filing cabinet, an old TV, whatever, you don't really care. You don't really care that, the employees are selling stuff that they no longer need to one another. And the only way to do this effectively is by classifying the data. And before you classify the data, you have to come up with classifications. And this is just a sample. Okay, so the US government has its own. And some people say, okay, it's good enough for me. I'm just going to use the US government classifications, or a company can come up with their own classifications. So we have top secret, secret, and then we have to define, of course, what top secret means, and what does secret mean, and what does confidential mean, and what does restricted mean, and what does official mean. And then, you know, we classify the data. Okay. And if you don't classify some data, it's because, you know, it's unclassified. We don't really care. You know, that website employees use to sell stuff to one another, you know, it's unclassified and we really don't care. Okay, or you can give it a low classification. But then if it's top secret or secret, then you have to treat it differently. You have to treat it differently. And one way of treating differently is logging. What kind of logging do we want to do? And who's allowed access? And who can go through the firewall to get to wherever that data is? And I don't think there is a standard to how do you protect each of these classifications, but this is what the policy intends to do. Remember, first you start with paper and then implementation. So on paper it says, you know, top secret, this is what it means, and this is how we're going to treat it differently. And secret, this is what it means, and this is how we're going to treat it differently. And treat it differently means you have more layers, you have more security, and fewer people are allowed access. And that's pretty, not necessarily these classifications, but classifying the data, this is normal. This is standard worldwide. It doesn't matter where you go worldwide. If you're dealing with a company or a government, they classify the data and then they treat the data differently based on the classification. Some of it they really don't care, and some of it they care deeply about. So to go back to you and LBCC, you know, I don't know what classification LBCC uses, but I would imagine, you know, student data would be top secret or secret. Because, you know, we have to protect, we have a legal moral obligations to protect your data. And we're not going to treat it the same way as we treat other kinds of data. Like, you know, what classes we're offering in the summer and the fall. Well, that's a different classifications. Okay, we're not really very worried about people, you know, finding out what we're offering or what we plan to offer in the summer and in the fall. And if someone does find out, okay, who cares? But student data, yes, we do care. And employee data, same. You know, they have a lot of data about me. And I care. And I want them to do everything they humanly can to protect my data. So this is chapter 11. So this is the one chapter that we don't really learn anything technical new other than this document right here. And you have the summer. So I know you're going to be busy with finals, and that's good. That's where your focus should be. But I hope, you know, you take the summer to learn something new and useful. And some of these tools are excellent. So if you don't know enough about Wireshark, by all means, you know, this is a must-have skill for your field. Because when you're troubleshooting, you need data, and Wireshark will give you that data. ZenMap, if you want to harden your system, if you want to make your system more secure, well, this is a tool that will help you do that. Okay, this is like hiring a professional to go around your house and tell you, you know, where the weak points are. And you need to replace this window, and you need to replace this lock. You need to shut down this door. Okay, this is what those two tools will do. And I don't think any of you are interested in becoming a black hat hacker, but these are tools that they use too, to find out the vulnerabilities before they strike. Questions? We have no packet tracer labs for this chapter. Okay. So we're done with this. So this is the plan for next week, everybody. SBA on Tuesday, 10 to 1. After 1, you're going to have to email it to me. So I'm giving you a 3-hour window. And I will subtract points for late submission. And I believe I opened it till like 1:15, 1:30. So I gave you an additional 15 minutes, 20 minutes over and above the 3 hours. But you have to start at 10. You can't start at noon. And Thursday is the final exam. And if I were you, I will take this practice final exam multiple times because it's an excellent way to prepare for the real final exam. And if I were you, I would do the 11.3.1.1 lab at least a couple of times. First time, I wouldn't care about how long it's taking me. And then the second time, time yourself and see if you were to do it from scratch, how long would it take you? And 3 hours is a long time, but there's a lot you have to do for an SBA, and you've all done SBAs before. It's time consuming. Any questions? Okay. So how many of you are graduating this quarter? Let me do this. Okay. So Joseph, are you graduating this quarter?
Planning on it.
Okay, good. How about the rest of you? Okay.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Okay, good. Good job, Bill. Okay. Well, best wishes to both of you. If you want to use me as a reference, I'll be happy to be a reference for you. If you already have a job, congratulations. Please stay in touch. So let's link on LinkedIn. So send me an invite. And who knows, I may see you in the future cybersecurity courses, but best wishes. And if you're not graduating this quarter, I'm going to be in a sabbatical next year. So you will probably graduate before I come back. So I'm going to leave you in Dave's and CC's capable hands for network and system administration courses.
I'm graduating, Zico.
Thank you. And I'm going to be focusing on that cybersecurity certification. So I do have a project that I will be working on. And I need to take some courses myself and get certified to teach these courses myself. And we're going to be offering these courses next fall of 2021. And I hope I will see some of you in the fall 2021 for the cybersecurity courses. Very good, everyone. You have a great day. If you have any questions, just send me an email. But we don't have a class on Thursday, and we've covered the plan for next week. Take care, everybody.
Hey, Zico.
Yes, Zach.
I wanted to ask a couple questions that they don't have anything to do with this class, so I was just waiting till
Yes.
the class was over with. But I just wanted to talk to you about the final in the CS240B class.
Yes. Hold on for a second. Frank, are you online? Okay, go ahead, Zach. I didn't want to lose Frank, but go ahead.
I just from our emails, I'm having a problem just understanding how to do what you're asking for.
Yes.
For the final.
Yes.
Or final project. I have my 2 servers, my 2 domain controllers that I'm using.
Yes.
And you're saying that I need to run a DNS service and then migrate it to a different controller.
Very good. So Zach, remember, live migration is a Hyper-V service, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so this is not an independent utility. This is a part of Hyper-V.
Right.
And the point is, you know, you are moving a VM or a VM service from one VM to another. So I understand you have two servers, but you have two physical servers.
Right.
And I don't really know if Hyper-V, you please, you know, Google it and see. I don't know if you can use Hyper-V live migration to move a service from one physical box to another physical box. So
Right.
I don't know. I'm not saying you can't. I just don't know if you can. I don't
That's what I'm
believe you can.
confused about, because I don't have any virtual machines that I can use. Like, I don't have any operating systems or.
Well, you have access to operating systems. So you have access to Azure. If you were to go back to the Moodle, sorry, there is no Moodle for this site. Yes, there's a Moodle for the CS240B site. If you were to go back to Moodle, there is a document that will show you how to create your own Azure account. And then Azure gives you access to all the Microsoft products. So you can download Windows 10, Windows Server. So you do have access to that.
So from there, I could download onto my physical servers.
The ISO file,
Uh-huh.
and then you can install it. And now you will have two instances of VMs. And then you can use live migration to move a service like DNS, like IIS, like any service from VM1 to VM2. Does that make sense?
The way that you're trying to describe it sounds really simple, but whenever I try to research what you're talking about online, all I can find in Hyper-V live migration is move a VM from one server to another. I can't find what you're asking for. And I don't know how to do the
Very good.
project.
So why don't we do this? Okay. So just to move an empty VM, Zach, from one place to another place isn't really very much.
Well, I'm thinking that.
I mean, it's something.
Mhm.
I don't want you to think it's nothing, but it's not much.
Right.
And I know you can move a service because every year I've taught this course, I've had a team.
Mhm.
This is what's different this time is we don't really have team. It's mostly individuals because of, you know, the nature of this quarter.
I can't find any. Whenever I Google live migration and I read, hours of everything about live migration, all it talks about is moving virtual machines. So I know that I could have a virtual machine and I could be running something. I could be playing a video game on it. And then I know that I can move that virtual machine to another server without interrupting playing the video game on the virtual machine. I know that I can do all that. But as far as moving a service, I can't find any documentation about doing that.
Stay with me for 1 second. Okay, then why don't you do what you just told me you were going to do? But could you put something in that VM?
Right, I could run the VM and I probably won't play a video game, but I could maybe play a YouTube and I could have the screen showing the YouTube running and then move the VM without interrupting the YouTube.
Okay, it sounds good, Zach. I would accept that.
Okay.
I would accept that. So that is good.
Okay. Okay.
Anything else?
Well, if you what you're talking about with DNS and ISS, I mean I'm still willing to try and do those things. I just don't understand how.
It's getting late, Zach. You're gonna have to move. Okay. I mean I'm looking at the clock here. This is Tuesday of week 9. You're gonna do your presentation on Monday. So it's getting a little late. I feel like you need to have a goal and go for it at this point.
Right.
But I know that you can use Hyper-V not only to use a VM, but to use a service from one VM to another.
I know that I believe that. I just don't know where to find the information teaching me how.
And it's okay. So why don't we just focus on moving a VM,
All right.
like, which is what your plan is. And I'm telling you, it's acceptable to me. So I'm not going to penalize you for using Hyper-V to move a VM.
Okay.
Sounds good?
Thank you very much.
You are most welcome, Zach. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
All right. See ya.